distinguished guests, members of the diplomatic corps and our development partners who have joined us, fellow Kenyans, it gives me today great pleasure to join you all in this multi-sectoral national anti-corruption conference, a gathering that has brought together various stakeholders from the full spectrum of our national life with a view of providing a forum for reflection on the question of governance and the vice that is corruption, as well as its impact on our nation. Before I go much further, I take this opportunity to thank all who have been involved in organizing this august assembly and say thank you very much for bringing us all together to discuss this scourge of corruption. Asante ni sana. Entities, political and business leaders, workers, and a myriad of other actors. People have gathered here for 2 days to conduct a full and frank self-examination of the extent to which each one of us has either helped or hindered the fight against all forms of corruption in Kenya. We have also gathered here to conduct a peer review of the actions of other stakeholders and players in the anti-corruption war, and we are all being held to account for our actions and track record in this most important of national endeavor, the war against corruption and impunity. This conference should not be just another talk shop on corruption, where high-sounding promises of action are made, but which never materialize into tangible gains in the fight against graft. Today, I hope that together we shall turn the tide in the war against corruption, creating the platform for victory against the vice that has in many cases impeded our social and economic development as a nation. A vice that, like cancer, has spread throughout the entirety of our national life and permeated every aspect of our way of life, in public bodies, the religious arena, professional bodies, as well as private institutions. Corruption in some way has become an accepted way of life. As individuals and as a collective, we have sacrificed our traditions, customs, and values at the altar of materialism. Rather than shunning those who have made their wealth through illicit means, we celebrate them. Where once heroes were men and women who have sacrificed and contributed to making our society a better place, we now admire those who have manipulated the system to acquire ill-gotten wealth. In Kenya today, corruption has no stigma nor social consequence. Those who have stooped low and looted our nation are nevertheless able to walk down our streets with their heads held high. And this state of affairs is what we must reverse. And I believe there are 2 ways to go about it. I have been briefed and today had the opportunity to carefully listen, and I think I've heard you. As President and Head of State and Government, following my declaration of corruption as a national security threat, we have continued to sharpen all our arrows to bequeath the next generation a country whose foundation is equity and shared prosperity for all. Today, more stakeholders have joined the fight against the vice that holds us back, And from you, we have also heard new and exciting ideas on how we can enhance our actions against the vice. My government will continue to engage our international partners here present in mutual legal assistance, and in this regard, the coming months, I believe we will see increased repatriation of proceeds of crime held outside the country, as well as extradition of suspects and the receipt of key evidence to support both local and international-based cases. I wish to reassure all Kenyans that no matter which corner of our globe you hide, stolen funds from Kenya, that illicit wealth is no longer beyond the reach of the Kenyan government. With regard to recovery measures for proceeds of corruption within our borders, we have commenced on a number of interventions that have already begun to bear fruit. Step by step, we shall win this war. In recent times, Kenyans have witnessed renewed vigor by both investigators as well as the prosecution in boldly bringing the corrupt to book. For the first time, no person is beyond the reach of the long arm of the law, no matter how powerful or influential they may perceive themselves to be. With the support received from my government to all the institutions in the criminal justice system, it is indeed my firm belief that the high-profile prosecutions that have already been brought before courts are just the opening act of what our valiant and diligent investigators have been painstakingly piecing together. The fight against this monster requires all of us to work together in one common accord, a battalion of 45 million strong that makes us one indivisible nation of one people. Similarly, all arms of government, without any exception, must work together to eliminate this vice. Our investigators and prosecutors have taken to this task of fighting corruption with a renewed zeal. All arms of government must commit themselves today to clean up our corridors and from our corridors the crooked cartels that have for decades abused and denied justice by protecting those guilty of corruption and economic crimes. Our courts must stop the practice of using injunctions against investigation of corrupt activities. Issuing these orders makes it easier for the mandarins of corruption to destroy evidence and intimidate witnesses. Kenyans, I believe, today have spoken on the need to stop this practice. And I therefore call upon the judiciary, and in particular the Judicial Service Commission, to deeply reflect upon and correct areas of weakness that are clearly present in our judicial system. Bwana CJ, if I can just take a little break here. You know, I found it very interesting. I saw you were very angry today, especially with one group in our society called bloggers. You know, and I remember there was a time, you know, we wanted to pass a law to stop these people from insulting all of us left, right, and center. But then, you know, it was taken to court, and the court decided it was unconstitutional. So just like the rest of us, get used to it. Because you'll have to just get used to it. There's not much else we can do. We just move on. But in all seriousness, as somebody said here, I think Raila mentioned as well, we have to be honest. We have some cases, I will mention just 3, where case upon case, with the issue of Mwea, where President Kibaki, I think way back in 2010, signed a loan with the Japanese government to redevelop Muer and to increase irrigational capacity for growing rice, to make ourselves self-sufficient in rice. My friend, that issue was in court, I think until late last year, when the Japanese government threatened to withdraw the loan facility, thereby going to affect millions of people. Somebody in Kirinyaga there had decided that's not important. To get it back on track is going to cost the Kenyan taxpayer possibly an additional, I think it was 8 or 9 billion, 7 billion Kenya shillings. Surely, the rule of law must mean to protect also the taxpayer from this kind of problem. Surely. I can cite another one. We have cases and programs that we have with the World Bank, road projects, power projects, which have stalled because of injunctions given by courts. Injunctions given by courts. And I keep wondering, these injunctions, a project is in Mombasa, Mombasa one, injunction. Another one is in another part of the country, another one in another part of the country, another one in the other part of the country. But the people who are applying for these injunctions are the same people. So I wonder, who are these? They have learned kila pahali. Surely those are frivolous and denying once again the people of Kenya the ability to be served. So, me, I'm not going to say too much, but I think you have a problem, my friend. And it's a problem that you're going to have to deal with one way or another. Because we have some fellows who they got lost, they disappeared from Kenya. Me, I just heard they resurfaced somewhere in America. They've been in jail for 2 years. They are singing, I hear, like Watuko, telling us all. And yet, here in Kenya, they were walking around free while they were here. They go to court, they are released. They go to court, they are released. They continue with their business. Jamani baba, uko na tabu? Hata mimi nilikuwa na tabu. Na tutasaidiana. Tutasaidiana kuondoa hiyo tabu jamani. Uko na tabu. Unajua, let me sidetrack again. When we first started this battle, nikaita mkutano ati aka wa Kenya tuje pamoja tupambane na ufisadi. Sijui kama wengine mnakumbuka. Alafu watu wakaniingilia, mimi nikasema sasa mimi DPP, ofisi ya DPP ni independent. Ofisi ya DCI hawa pia wako na kazi yao. Koti iko na kazi yake. Sasa mimi mnakumbuka hiyo? Sasa mimi mnataka nifanye nini? Ungesikia mabloggers wakati hiyo bwana CJ vile walinilima. But I had no choice. So I went back to the drawing board. And I believe that we have worked to have a much more strengthened Directorate of Public Prosecution, a much more strengthened Department of Criminal Investigation. So hata wewe kaza kamba ya watu yako na utaona kile itatokea. In many instances, the identities of commissioners and senior judicial officers who have broken their oath of office and betrayed the people of Kenya are widely known. The Judicial Service Commission and the wider judiciary must now decide whether they shall clean up the house for themselves or whether they're going to have it done for them. That is not to say that we should not have a vibrant and independent judiciary. We must never compromise on the protections under the Bill of Rights, nor erase the gains that have been made securing Kenya and making Kenya a more just society. We can have a judicial system that resonates with the aspirations of all Kenyans, as well as one that secures fundamental rights and due process. We must all ask ourselves, are we with Kenyans in the war against corruption, or are we against them? Let us remind ourselves of the inspiring words of our national anthem, and it says, "Justice should be our shield and defender," not the shield and defender to protect the unjust. And I add, of the public good, and not a barrier against accountability and the prosecution of high-profile corruption cases. We in the executive are deeply aware that we too have many rotten apples in our midst, both at the national and county level. The root of this malady is what I would call a conflict of interest. I believe going forward, parastatal chiefs should not be in a position to use their offices to advance their private businesses. Those in the arena of road traffic regulation, kama tumeambiwa hapa, should not at the same time be players in the industries that they supervise. Kwa hivyo, kama ni polisi, jameni muamue, wewe unataka kuwa mwenye matatu na ni sawa, lakini uniform weka chini. Huwezi kuwa ofisa ambaye anashika gari kwa barabara, alafu wewe pia ndio ofisa ambaye ndio mwenye gari. You cannot police yourself. Kwa hivyo, I think we need to be very clear on that. And in line with the proposals made by this forum, I am today directing the Honorable Attorney General to prepare a bill that will address the question of conflict of interest and the unintended consequences that arose from the Degwa Commission report of 1971, as well as prohibiting any action by any state or public officer that creates a conflict of interest, due loyalties, or an advantage over other persons who do not hold such offices. For example, with due respect to members of parliament, including senators, they should no longer be able to use committee powers to demand information from public offices and then utilize that same information in their own pursuits. State and public officers will have a simple choice: serve in the public arena or go and do private business. Ladies and gentlemen, I am particularly glad that the conversation about corruption in our country is now focused also on the role of religious actors, civil society, businesses, professional groups, and the private sector generally in advancing the fight against this vice. I think this is a conversation that was long overdue. Most corruption scandals unearthed in government have been engineered by business persons and or professionals who connive with willing public officers to defraud the government. It is for this reason that our renewed efforts against corruption have involved investigation and prosecution of these private entities who provide the supply side of corruption. And I call upon the private sector, and in particular our various professional bodies, to support our efforts and take a bolder stand in calling out the corrupt in their midst. The disciplinary arms of professional bodies should more actively investigate and take action against members who are engaged in unethical behavior. We did, for example, as we have now been fighting this issue of money laundering, and we put in a clause that we wanted lawyers who hold clients' accounts to be able to share that information with investigative and financial bodies. And they shot it down in Parliament. So today, under client privilege, people can move money around and not have to declare and just say, client, munaita nini hiyo? Client confidentiality, hiyo. And we have no problem with that where you're doing legitimate business. But if a matter is under investigation, surely, if a man or a woman for that matter is being investigated for a particular case, why should you deny the investigative arms the ability to be able to see who the beneficial owner is? I today call again on the lawyers' body and also on Parliament, do the right thing. Let us bring that law back. Let us reintroduce that. Let us reintroduce it for those areas where we know that lawyers are being used to hide illicit funds. Tafadhalini, if you are genuine and if you're serious about what we are talking about here today. And I also urge our religious leaders and institutions and private corporate institutions to also tackle corruption more aggressively. The days of sitting on the fence or not taking a stand must come to an end. Our religious leaders must lead their flock in creating social jails for those who have built their fortunes on looted monies. Our private companies must make the decision that profits are not superior to public interest. The general public has also an important role to play in highlighting instances of corruption in both the public and private sector. Kenya has a vibrant social media landscape. I urge Kenyans to use the tools of social media to identify, stigmatize, and report all instances of corruption that come to their knowledge. Mwache matusi, lakini fanyeni hii. Matusi haisaidii. Au ni namna gani CJ? Ni kweli. Lakini kama uko na kitu ya kweli sema. Lakini kuna haja ya kusema kwa njia ya matusi. Au ni namna gani wenzangu? Kunaye anataka kutusiwa na watoto wanasoma hii, nani anasoma na mtu anatumia lugha ambayo hata huelewi. Anyway, ni sawa sawa tu. Mungu yuko. And also equally, Bwana Kiboro, you took all of us on, and I take your challenge, at least when it comes to the executive. But I also believe you should also challenge yourselves. You should also challenge yourselves as the fourth estate. Not just say you are challenging the rest of us, challenge yourselves. And I believe, just like I am telling the CJ, kuna mambo huko, hata nyinyi mutapata, kuna mambo huko. Na ni kweli. Kila mtu ajue, kila mtu asafishe nyumba yake. Kila mtu asafishe nyumba ya? Namna hiyo. In the war against corruption, each and every one of us must decide if they will be a soldier for good or a collaborator in evil. We wage this war not just for ourselves, but more importantly for the generations that are coming up and those that are yet to be born. Corruption is the destroyer of dreams, and our nation cannot achieve her destiny as long as we remain shackled by corruption practices and their negative effects. To do this, we must present our children with a picture of the possible, profiling the positive, championing the honest, and celebrating the humble. In this spirit, I acknowledge all those public officers who perform their duties with commitment, passion, and dedication, and who abhor fraud and corruption in the true spirit of public service. You unfortunately suffer the reputational hazard of a few less illustrious colleagues who sometimes give the public service a bad name. I want today to take this opportunity to acknowledge citizens of virtue, citizens such as the Kenya Ladies Golf Association, Ghana team, who was sponsored by the Ministry of Sports, Arts and Culture with Kenya shillings 2.5 million to participate in an event in Ghana, and when they came back, returned a check of Kenya shillings 500,000 as monies that they had not spent. I hail police officers like Police Constable Joshua Ombati, who pursued, intercepted, and arrested 2 robbery suspects and declared the recovery of Kenya shillings 400,000. I also wish to recognize citizens like Daniel Mwaura, a matatu tout on the Gashie city center route, who, as described in social media, did something remarkable and unimaginable in this economy by returning a customer's lost wallet with Kenya shillings 30,000 still intact. We have so many million honest, hardworking, and virtuous people in our society, and we must hold them up as the role models to be emulated by our youth. We should celebrate these everyday heroes as they counterpoint to the narrative that wealth is the ultimate reason for being alive. Indeed, as head of state and government, I will continue to play my role in the fight against corruption, and we will wage this war with all the tools available to us by law, and we will not compromise or relent. The interventions proposed here today will be incorporated in the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, and with your support and the support of millions of Kenyans who yearn for a corruption-free society, this war will be won. A child who has just joined grade 1 this year should not join upper primary in a society where corruption is as pervasive as it is today. I wish to take this opportunity to conclude now by calling on all Kenyans to join together in this sacred duty of making Kenya corruption-free. One of the issues that was raised here today, and I will ask the Minister of Education to engage with the Transport Ministry and the stakeholders in the ministry, is this issue, and I think that's a good idea, to introduce this issue of training. TVETs, you're here, yeah? I see no reason. We are building TVETs across the country. Introduce a course where these young people can be trained and given proper driving skills. Yeah, work with these people of matatus and others and lorries and buses. Msaidie hawa watu, wajifunze vizuri. I think that's good. Sindio? Sawa Kevin? Hiyo mambo ya NYS, mutapanga na huyu mama, sijui kama atakubali, lakini hiyo ni yenu. Yeah. Kwa hayo machache na mengi nasema Mungu awabariki, Mungu ailinde Kenya. Asanteni sana kwa kila mmoja wenu kwa kuja kuwa pamoja nasi siku hizi mbili. Asanteni sana. Sorry, nikimalizia. Hapa pia tuko na regional commissioners wetu kutoka kila region ya nchi yetu ya Kenya, na wamekuwa hapa na wamesikia yale yote ambayo mmekuwa mkisema. Tulikuwa pamoja na hawa juzi Mombasa, na nikawaambia ya kwamba katika region zao, katika county zao, wawe maofisa in the front line ya kutenda yale ambayo tunafanya na tunasema hapa. Kwa hivyo wale ambao wanafikiria wamepotelea sijui Eldoret, Kisumu, Nyeri, Murang'a, Kiambu, Mombasa, mjue hata huko gari itafika. Asanteni sana na Mungu awabariki.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We will now have the national anthem.